This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Long ago, before this day's confusion did begin, throughout the stars did we go wandering. Distance was no barrier, and time it had no hope. Free to come and free to go. Free to come and free to go. Open up the book of stars. Open up the
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Karmic Evolution's Astrologically Speaking. I'm your host, Sherry Horn Hassan of Karmic Evolution Astrology, coming to you on May 13th, 2021 from Contact Talk Radio. Just a quick reminder that this show aims to bring you the truth about astrology and your soul's karmic evolution. I'm pleased to announce that today my guest is evolutionary astrologer Marina Ormes, who I will, of course, be introducing properly in just a few minutes. But first, my usual boring housekeeping stuff, which is to remind you that you can go to my Karmic Evolution Facebook page, see my posts there on the current astro energies, along with my new and full moon reports. And of course, now that I've just said that, I have to confess and apologize because I did not get a report out for the Taurus New Moon. I won't even bore you about why, but my apologies. So, check next week and I'll be back. Also, on the Facebook page, you can sign up to receive my new and full moon reports via email by my to receive my Conversations About Consciousness email newsletter. Okay, just go down on the left-hand side of the Karmic Evolution Facebook page, scroll down till you hit join email list, and it's as simple as that. So the other thing is, if you've missed any past shows or you want to re-listen to a specific one, feel free to just go to my website at karmicevolution.com, hit radio show on the upper hand corner of the banner, and scroll down that page, and there you can access all of the recordings of all the past shows. And finally, in addition, I continue to offer my discounted 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading to listeners for only $99. So if you are interested in learning more about your karmic mission and purpose in this lifetime, if you'd like to get a better handle on how to move from chaos to clarity in your relationships, your career, with finances, with health, if you are desirous of attempting to heal old karmic wounds and to co-create your own future happiness and success, or just awaken to your true potential and highest destiny in this lifetime, it's easy when you take advantage of this special discounted offer. Again, a 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading for only $99. So simply email me at Sherry, that's SHERI, at karmicevolution.com and book your reading today. At almost half the regular price, conscious awareness has never been so easy or so affordable. Okay, so let's get right into this week's Astro news you can use. First, we're in the waxing portion of the monthly lunar cycle, since we had the May 11th Taurus New Moon just 2 days ago offer us the opportunity to plant new seeds around self-love, self-value, and self-acceptance. There's space to do that now, as long as we released any obstinate resistance to letting go of old ways of thinking and believing since the April 26th Scorpio full moon. So if we want our garden to grow And the Taurus archetype is the one most resonant with this particular metaphor of a garden. We must clear out old, outworn psychological debris, which in this case revolves around outdated and no longer current values, beliefs that are in alignment with newer social mores. And this includes ancient ideas about our own sense of beauty and self-worth. So the Scorpio full moon asked us to evolve by rooting out these beliefs. And, I'm talking about I'm not pretty, I'm not thin, I'm not smart, I'm not successful enough, the ones that limit us from evolving into a more empowered human being, basically, as we move into our future. So it's into this fresh, clean soil, untainted by such deeply ingrained beliefs that, sadly, we're often told to, taught, or forced upon us by others. And that means they're not even connected to our true soul's inner guiding light. And, if we carry these beliefs around forever, where are we going to plant the seeds that honor our true priceless nature? The Venus's Taurus is often likened, it's the ruler of the second house in the natural chart. It's often likened to money, but money really just has to do with the fact that it's something to which we ascribe value. So Taurus is really about value. So we want to honor our own value, and our value, I use the word priceless because you can't put a price tag on a human life, right? Well, at least as far as I'm concerned, you can't. So we all have a priceless nature. And, again, there's no price tag on the emotional serenity that can come from sitting in our metaphorical inner garden, surrounded by nature's beautiful offerings in the form of flowers, trees, grass, birds, little animals, etc. And this comprises the true definition of the Taurus archetype: peace, harmony, beauty, calm, nature, and all that pleases our physical senses in the form of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And as I've noted before on this show, these 5 senses are on what we base our preferences, and they serve as the foundation upon which we predicate our values and our value system. So if we feel that something about ourselves isn't pleasing, we can hamper our ability to create a self-image that we can truly love and embrace unconditionally. So the message of this just past Taurus New Moon, and like I said, we're still in the waning, I'm sorry, not waning, it's waxing. New moons wax and full moons wane. As both, during the actual lunation or just following the actual lunation, the Taurus moon trined Pluto, and that was completed just a few hours later, but the sun was waxing towards the trine to Pluto, and that's not going to culminate until May 17th. So those earthy trines revolve around a greater sense, or developing a greater sense of self-empowerment now. We don't need the outside world and its authority figures to tell us whether we're good enough, beautiful enough, smart enough, or whatever. Rather, this lunation reminds us that to find peace and serenity within, we need only to accept the fact that God don't make junk, and that unconditional self-love is always an inside job, as they say. Now today, May 13th, Jupiter enters Pisces, the traditional sign of its rulership from before Neptune was discovered in the late 1860s. And it brings with it the propensity or the possibility or the potential for us to gain a higher consciousness around our connection to the collective. So what do I mean by that? Well, that we're better able to expand our consciousness, which is Jupiter, around both intuiting and feeling empathy, which is Pisces, for not only ourselves, but for others as well. Now, this combination of planet and sign becomes, on the high side, a very altruistic one, which is to say we may work toward peaceful solutions by expanding our sense that we humans are all in this collective mess together. On the other hand, Jupiter may also expand things in a rather different direction. And I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that one of this week's major international events, which is the conflagration and confrontation raging over the past few days between Israel and the Palestinians of Gaza and the West Bank at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. You guys who listen to the show regularly know I often bring in current events as a way of illustrating the macrocosm of as above, so below. And then, we can try and pull those down into our personal lives to extrapolate the meaning on a more individual level. So Jupiter, by virtue of being the natural ruler of the 9th house, represents, among other things, religion. So at this Taurus New Moon, we had the transiting Jupiter-ruled Sagittarius South Node. And one way to interpret this energy is what I'd call, especially in this context, this current context, religious righteousness. In quincunx, which is a 150-degree aspect to Mars in Cancer, which was sextiling Uranus in Taurus. Now, this configuration, when two planets are sextile to each other, and both of them quincunx another planet or a sensitive point, is called a yad, and is known by many astrologers as the finger of God. Now, the Mars-Uranus sextile, although sextiles often represent an opportunity, can also bring with it restlessness, impatience, and impulsivity. And the energy seeks something new, but, when Mars is involved, it wants it now. And with Mars in Cancer, is inclined to defend and protect both the motherland. Remember, Cancer is ruled by the moon, and in mundane astrology, the moon represents the people, and like I said, the motherland. And once, and sextiling Uranus and Taurus, that energy cries out for a change in our current value system. So what did we see? We saw attacks on the eve of two, or close to the eve of two religious events, right? One was the end of Ramadan, which here actually is tonight. And the other is not a religious event, but it was a patriotic event, the formation of Israel. So I'm going to get into that in a second, so I'll give you that date, but it's now. So these two things clashed with each other, right? And it happened at the Al-Aqsa, AQSA, all right? Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest Islamic sites near the Temple Mount, which Jews consider a holy sacred space as well. So without going too deeply down a political rabbit hole here, or a historical one, and everyone can Google the news stories because there's plenty of them right now. Let's just say both Israelis and Palestinians have been killed and wounded over the past few days, including a number of children. The casualties, I feel compelled to mention, are higher on the Palestinian side, but they're not nothing on the Israeli side either. So the Biden administration has reportedly sent an envoy to Israel to monitor the situation. An interesting move when you realize that we have a yad here, right, that was in play, and its resolution, the resolution of a yad, any yad, is said to be the midpoint between the two sextiling planets, which is also the opposition point to the quincunx planet or point, which in this case is the south node. So again, in this case, the Sagittarius north node, the Gemini north node is the focal point. That's the midpoint between Mars and Uranus here. And it's the opposition point to the south node, of course. So, the Sagittarius south node, religious beliefs on both sides, being agitated by Mars and Cancer's need to defend and protect its people. It's the religious rights of its people. I mean, in context of Israel, of course, they claim not to be a religious state, but in actuality, they pretty much are. So I'm not looking to start any kind of arguments. I'm just saying that, it's predominantly Jewish there. So, meanwhile, Uranus and Taurus demands that no situation can remain stagnant forever, right? So the mid and opposition point here is occupied not only by the Gemini North Node, but also by its ruler, Mercury in Gemini. So a messenger, Mercury in Gemini, was sent by the U.S. which is a historical supporter and protector of Israel, to possibly broker a truce of some kind through opening up a dialogue, again, Mercury and Gemini, or a peace talk. That's a little, nobody's talking peace talk, but, it's to calm things down, aimed at least tamping down this particular dispute from becoming a full-blown or all-out war. Now, this whole situation had me look up the birth chart of Israel. So I'll give you guys the data because I think it's really interesting. It's May 14th, 1948 at 4 p.m. in Tel Aviv. And guess what? The May 11th Taurus New Moon at 21 degrees and 18 minutes fell on Israel's 8th house, 23 degree, 39 minute Taurus Sun. And not only that, it triggered Israel's protective sense. That's the 8th house Sun, because it resides within Pluto's domain, making it secretive, which Israel is known to be. They instituted Mossad. They're one of the best intelligence agencies in the entire world. But the secretiveness was out of a sense of feeling disempowered. And Pluto always wants to have the upper hand, or Pluto Scorpio energy. But the Sun in the 8th house here also is in a T-square. It's opposite the 2nd house, which is Taurus, Venus's Taurus domain. It's opposite the 2nd house wounded healer Chiron in Scorpio, which is also a wound to trust, and square to an 11th house Mars in Leo. So we can feel this trigger as a recipe for explosive action based on a sense of past woundedness. And I think, if we're looking at, I don't have a Palestinian chart, but if we're looking at Israel's chart and realizing that they project their own woundedness out onto other people, then we have, the other side is also wounded, right? They reflect in other words, they reflect their woundedness back and forth to each other. And that sparks this need to continue to self-protect. Now, another big incident that's undoubtedly more related to the ongoing Saturn and Aquarius squares to Uranus and Taurus this year, especially as we approach the next exact square on June 14th, is the ousting of Representative Liz Cheney from her position as the Republican leader of the House of Representatives yesterday on May 13th. Now, the ongoing turmoil in the GOP since last November's election has 100 Republicans threatening to form a new party. Now, I don't think any of these Republicans are sitting legislators. Most of them are former administration officials or former people like Governor Christine Whitman of New Jersey and other prominent Republicans. But I could be wrong. It could be some current legislators in there too. But whether or not there are, the point is clear. It's time to break away from the status quo and do something different, something more related to the future. Why? Because ideologies have shifted and they're not necessarily in alignment with the current set of needs, mores, and beliefs of the average American, because after all, politicians represent their constituents, or the average American citizens, right? So whether a new party forms or not remains to be seen, but the split is widening as we speak, so stay tuned. Now, when this Taurus Sun completes its trine to Pluto and Capricorn on May 17th, which is again the culmination of the waxing energy begun at May 11th's Taurus New Moon, reform is most definitely in the air. So whether this reform takes shape through American intervention in the Israeli, or I should say successful American intervention in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now remember, the sun in mundane astrology is the king or the head of state, or, like a president. So this could well represent that the heads of state, meaning President Biden, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Palestinian representative Mohammed Abbas, strike some kind of truce, or through, Republicans revisiting and rethinking their current evolutionary direction. And again, all this remains to be seen. But with Mercury's retrograde in Gemini approaching us starting on May 29th, there's bound to be both a lot of discussion and a slew of review of what's going on in many different quarters. And this, again, also at the Taurus New Moon's Yad, that Mercury in Gemini conjoined to the North Node in Gemini, tell us this is the way forward. So the trick now is to understand, as I said before, as above, so below, and to recognize how these big picture energies relate to our individual lives. We all have merit and worth and value. What do we have to do to prove this to ourselves so that we can stand up to others and not feel slighted? The answer is through dialogue. Again, opening up to others' perspectives and letting in some fresh air and light that can highlight what needs Venus's, well, okay, let me back up here a second. What we've got happening, what I'm trying to say is that with all this in play, right, we have, so the sun's trine to Pluto, an earthy trine, is going to culminate May 17th. And on the 19th, Venus will trine Saturn. Okay. So together, I think these bode well for an actual beginning of some kind of solution, at least in the short term, to the two situations I mentioned, and probably a whole host of more, a whole host of other situations, whether they be on the world stage or in our private personal lives. Because Venus trine Saturn is about finding common ground in relationships and partnerships that acknowledge the importance of both parties to each other. And this aspect favors practical and realistic solutions to any partnerships that feel unbalanced now, as it can better balance our duties and obligations to others with what we get in return: affection, love, commitment, and respect. So we can make our expectations of each other clearly known now, which is a big plus as we move toward Mercury's retrograde review period soon. Okay, so without any further ado, I'd like to welcome today's guest. Evolutionary astrologer Marina Ormes holds a master's level certification from Stephen Forrest's apprenticeship program and is a retired board certified holistic nurse with a 25-year background in both holistic healing and astrology. Her most recent book, Astrology Heals: The Ormes Method of Transformational Astrology, helps those seeking wholeness and wellness understand all they are capable of and how to achieve it with the help of insights from their natal chart. Marina's first book, Cycles of Healing: Personal Transformation in Relationship to a Living Cosmos, published in 2011 at the founding of her business Astrology Heals, provides insight into how astrology supports an ongoing healing process. She's also the author of the ebook Secrets of the New Paradigm: How Astrology Reveals the Way Forward, and a contributing author to the anthology Nurse Sparks through her chapter titled Dancing with the Universe: How Astrology Brings Meaning to the Healing Process. Marina's busy practice assists people at different life stages, from student to wise elder, to understand their authentic soul's purpose so they can live a life of fulfillment and meaningful contribution. She offers private consultations, a popular membership program that features heart and mind opening, astrologically aligned guided meditations, and soul-centered group programs. All of her services utilize astrology as a tool for personal awareness, healing, and empowerment. Marina lives in Eugene, Oregon with her family, where she supports two talented college-age children, an unbounded garden, a petulant cat, a photogenic dog, and some very articulate chickens. On occasion, she has been found eating a homemade sandwich under a canopy of Douglas fir in the Cascades, or contemplating cold water with her toes at the Oregon coast. Okay, Marina, I want your life, okay?
Anytime.
I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. That's the inner garden, right? I'm like toes in the water, eating a sandwich.
Absolutely.
I have to ask you this. Does the petulant cat get along with the photogenic dog?
Not so much. Their relationship is evolving.
Okay. Just like all of us, right?
Yeah.
Too funny. Anyway, listen, it's a pleasure to welcome you back to the show. How are you? That's my first question. How are you today on the coast there?
I'm doing great. We're having a beautiful day here, and it's always a pleasure to chat with you, Sherry. I'm super excited that you invited me back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. It's great to talk to you. And for those of you who don't know, and I don't really think there's any reason you would know, Marina and I both studied with Stephen Forrest at the same time. And so we know each other from way back. And she's a great astrologer and a great person. So let me ask you first, I'm wondering if you can explain to our listeners first, like what is a holistic nurse exactly? And then how you discovered that the combination of holistic nursing and astrology. Now, I don't know that you use astrology in your nursing, but how they go together or how they kind of entwined for you.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, holistic nursing is a specialty within the field of nursing. You can actually get certified as a holistic nurse, and you have to be a nurse first. But the premise of holistic nursing is that it focuses on the whole person. So body, mind, spirit, emotion, and brings in the context of someone's life and how, for instance, thinking about the bigger picture of what someone's going through, how their illness or their situation is impacting them based on their family situation or their home situation or their work situation. So it kind of brings in a whole context of understanding of the whole person and nursing and caring for people from that perspective.
Oh, that makes total sense. Okay. And so did the discovery of astrology I understand, I get the connection between holistic and astrology. So, but I just want, I want our listeners to understand how you feel they're connected.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's really actually a direct connection because in astrology, we have the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water, and those directly correspond to body, mind, spirit, and emotion. So we've got right here, just with understanding how in a chart we can see the balance of the elements. We can see what we need in terms of body, mind, spirit, and emotion, and really addressing our needs for healing as a whole person.
Cool. So tell us also more about your books, because I didn't even know that you had all these books, but especially your latest one. What can you, I mean, the first question that comes to mind is just to ask you, what is the ORMS method of transformational healing and how it basically works?
Yeah, so that's the name of my second book. And so my first book was called Cycles of Healing, and it went into how ongoing astrological cycles describe the process that we're going through as we come upon different phases of the moon, for example, or different transits of Jupiter, or whatever it may be. That's part of an evolving cycle, and we can understand how to work with that consciously to use our intentions to manifest the outcomes we want. It's really all about outcomes when it comes to healing. So where do we want to be, and how can we understand what the planets are telling us about where we are now and where they're going and where we're going to help ourselves have a deeper understanding of the whole process. So that's where it began. And then I wrote the second book, Astrology Heals, the ORMS Method of Transformational Astrology, because I wanted to sort of explain to people what the foundation is of how we can approach this. So the ORMS method combines 3 things that all have these parallels. It combines whole self wellness, which is the mind, body, spirit, and emotion. It combines that with the astrology of potential. So we're seeing not only what astrology tells us about what is, but about what can be, or how we can optimize the energies. And so that's air, earth, fire, and water. And then we've got also this idea of aligned manifestation. And that when we're working together with our mindset, our self-care, our actions, and our feelings, and when we're finding that balance of bringing in all 4 of those pieces of wholeness, then we can more effectively and powerfully create the outcomes we want, because we're aligning we're working through the emotions we need to work through. We're taking the actions we need to take or the risks we need to take. We're finding the mindset that's going to best support us. So it's all about bringing in this wholeness, and the ORMS method works on those, brings those three levels together.
Ah, so cool. I particularly like what you say about the chart, because you and I both know, like, especially with traditional astrology, it was so much more considered to be your fate, like your chart was your fate, but the ability to say, no, that may show us, because we're both evolutionary astrology, may show us what occurred in the past, but it also actually shows us our potential for the future, right? And that involves change. And, we both know change is the only constant. So, but that's what drew me, I think, to this branch of astrology. But I think that's cool that it's in there prominently as one of your, tenays. So,
and when we have that too, like, just seeing it, thinking about things that way, it helps us to always remember that it's not just there's no bad things in your chart. There's always, like, okay, where's the pitfall, right? What could happen if we're not conscious or doing the work that we need to do? And then what is the possibility? What could it be if we take advantage of it? So it's always coming back to that place of, what is my role in choosing how I want to make the most out of this?
Right. And I like the connection to healing because, of course, it's like, for those of us who've ever been diagnosed with something that we felt was dire at the time, we can look and say, well, that's the way it was and the way it is, but it's not the way it has to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
In other words, we can not control, but we can live. I don't know how to say it. I want to say live in harmony. That's not really the right words though, but we can accept, and we can modify, and we can change our attitudes,
Right.
and go from being fearful, say, for example, to being more empowered, regardless, so that's cool.
Exactly. And I just want to be really clear that it doesn't mean that you can always make the diagnosis go away, or that you can always, like, you don't have that kind of control. But when you think about it at this deeper level, it's, what is the invitation? What is your soul getting out of this experience? And so there may be some learning in the process. There may be some emotional healing. There, maybe somebody needs to have a resolution with their father, or, these things that we experience, that feel like bad news. And, I'm not saying they're not bad news. But it's about looking for, what is this in asking of me? How can I step up into the invitation or the challenge to live my full potential, which may not be what we think it is? So, so beautiful.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, very cool. Very cool. So let me ask you about some of the current astrological energies. Obviously, I went on and on and on about the Taurus New Moon, but I know you do I'm going to ask you to tell people about it in a few minutes, but you have manifesting with moon cycles. So is there anything you want to add to it, or go down a different route with it, since I obviously took it off in a in a rather political direction, about the major messages on a collective or personal level?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, I just love the way that you talk about things, and you have a really deep way of thinking that gets me thinking. And so I really appreciate. I always appreciate talking with you because of that. And
thank you. Same here. So back at you, baby.
But I love. Yeah. Right. I don't know what we say over here, but
I don't know, but you say it's funny. That's all I know.
So anyway. I loved what you were saying about self-love and self-acceptance and self-value. And I think that just my perspective on things is just to, I love the big picture political stuff, and people who really like you dive more into analyzing that and what's going on and how it's connected to these energies, because it helps us put that into context as well. But I think my own perspective is more to bring it back to, well, what does this mean for us? What can we do about it? What's going on? And so this Taurus new moon is it's of course in a context of other planetary energies that are happening, and you have this new moon, which is, it's a fairly brief period of time. It's a trigger point, and it comes on the heels of an Aries new moon and a Pisces new moon that was before that. And so in the bigger picture of cycles, we also have it falling in the midst of this Saturn and Uranus square, and the Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune in Pisces. All of these things are happening in this bigger picture, and we can see these different developments happening, of course, in the news and in politics. We see things developing that are part of these bigger picture cycles and energies with these trigger points that happen along the way. But to, you flesh that out pretty well. So to bring it to what can we do, just to remember that a new moon is a seed point. It's a seed point in a cycle, and we constantly have these cycles that are evolving, and we can use them to set our intentions consciously. Again, bringing it back to the outcomes. What is it we want? What feels important to us? So it takes it out of the place of being frightened about what's going to happen, because you have to remember that when you're afraid or like have that anxiety that you need to know what's going to happen and is it going to be okay, you're letting the power be outside of yourself. And so when you bring the power back, you're saying, well, why does that bother me? What is it I'm afraid of? And that's the personal evolution part, because when we can come back to, well, if we're afraid, do we feel disempowered? So what is our place of power? And we actually have a lot of power, right? That we are human beings right now creating the future. And so how can each of us be our best selves so that we can create the outcomes we want, whether that's on a personal level or on a bigger picture political level? And some of us are more called to activism, and some of us are more called to, making a difference for our own children. And it's all appropriate. It's all really part of the whole.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so that was, so I sort of went off on that, but the new moon in Taurus is the place to set our intentions about what we want. So it's just it's a coming back to the self, and so beautifully, like you were describing, like that feeling of being in the garden, feeling the sun and the breeze, and smelling the aromas of spring or wherever you happen to be in the world, and taking that time to ground and to really just let yourself be in that place of peace, because in that place of peace you can connect with what's important to you and why. And that's, even if you don't know really what you want or what it looks like, you can always just connect with that place inside of yourself that feels like, okay, I just want to feel like everything's okay. Maybe that's your intention, and then to just connect with that during the new moon. Then what you're doing is you're saying that as this moon cycle unfolds, as the moon waxes and builds toward full, that I'm putting my energy into having a development or an outcome that can support these things that feel important to me, that I want to feel like everything's okay. And so I'm inviting in things that will help me feel okay.
No, I love that. Yeah. I love that. And you made me remember that one of the things I didn't say that I wanted to say, that I think you'll agree with, is that I feel like when we do what you just said, we also plant the seeds around increasing our sense of self-worth, no matter how we feel is the best or most appropriate way to do that, right? Is that
totally, yeah,
as we manifest from our inner energies, the outer world, right? That's
Right.
the toughest concept, I think, for people to get around, but it's the one that represents the greatest growth in consciousness. So if we, even just intellectually, because you and I got Aquarian streaks, so if I can get it intellectually, then I can start to absorb it more emotionally. But if we plant the seeds and grow the garden around self-love, self-value, self-worth, then we're going to manifest those inner energies in our external world and draw to us people who value us the way that we can value ourselves internally, and vice versa, which makes for, what so many people in the world are always dying for, which is happy relationships, right?
Yes.
I should say
Yes.
successful, happy, long-lasting relationships. But anyway, I just wanted to add that. So let me move on and ask you, because today, May 13th, Jupiter is moving out of Aquarius and into Pisces. So this is where the king of the gods and the planet of expansion and higher consciousness, it's been transiting in Aquarius since December 2020. And now, again, like I said before, it's moving into its own traditional sign of Pisces. So how do you think this energy is going to play? You and I know, it's going to be moving forward into Pisces till July 28th. Then it's going to retrograde back and not go back into Aquarius until, I forget if it's late December or early next. Oh, yeah, it's December 28th. That's what I have here. So anyway, how do you think that the temporary move forward will play?
Yeah, so this is, the feeling of Jupiter going into Pisces is, Jupiter is consciousness. It's also our beliefs, it's growth, it's expansion. And so you put it in this totally unbounded sign of Pisces. And I think, again, we have to look at, well, what are the pitfalls and what's the potential? And the pitfall, one of the things that I've been pointing out to my clients is just to remember that there's the potential to kind of lose yourself, to go into addictive patterns, or lose your sense of self, or get lost in the fog with Jupiter just expand. Yes. So it's really important, if you want to take advantage of these energies and work with them positively, that keeping that anchor on, who am I? What is important to me? And that's, where this Taurus New Moon is so important, to just help us ground and remember who we are, and remember how to get back to that place of centeredness. And that if we do that, then we're opening ourselves to really a transformation in consciousness. I think, this ability to expand into a bigger feeling of divine purpose and clarity around who we are spiritually.
I love that. Divine purpose. That's cool. Yeah. And I think too, it does hark back to, just as you just said, the Taurus New Moon, because it's like there's so much value in that, right? Discovering your divine purpose. Like once you have that key, right, then you've got the richest world. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
seeing that, that basement filled with gold coins imagery, and just, like all that abundance, and to think really about what is, so we all think that we want money, right? But but what is money? Money is just this thing. And so what is it that money gives us? It's accessing this truly abundant experience, and what would that look like? And that's a really powerful thing to reflect on. Like, what would make you feel really abundant, and what are the things that you want that you are hoping money will help you with, and can you invite those things in and open to those things? And money is great, but what is the real, the bigger why?
Right. Well, sometimes, it's sort of like, what is it you really want? You want the money. Money is just a representative of what it can buy, So what is it you really want, either to buy or to have, because you and I both know Taurus is to have too, right? It's
Right,
possession.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's like, do you need the money to possess it? No, the money is just the middleman. It's just the means to the ends, right? So,
Right.
you know, but
Totally.
that could, yeah, take us down a whole nother route. I want to ask you about also the Saturn square to Uranus. We have about 10 minutes left, and I don't
Okay.
want to miss the chance to give you an opportunity to talk about your own program, because I think it's really cool, the manifesting with moon cycles. And you know, just from talking to you, I know you've been doing it for a while, and
Yeah.
it you know, you have a great handle on it, I can tell. And you know, so tell us now about that, and maybe if we have the time, we'll get back to the Saturn square Uranus. But or I'll just have you come back on. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yes.
You know, but
Yeah.
that's the stuff and what else you're doing now, you know. So but anyway, tell us about the manifesting with moon cycles, because it's interesting.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that. And then if we've got a couple minutes, we'll talk about the square. Um, so I have many clients who have been in this program with me. It's a month-to-month membership program, and I just help them. You know, they're people who want the benefits and the advantages of knowing this astrological energy and how to optimize what's happening at any given time without spending, you know, the 25 years that you and I have to learn all this astrology.
Yeah, and speaking of money, right?
Right, right.
We're close to you
so
and I.
so the so the program gives them guided meditations that work with the energies and help them connect with their own inner wisdom, but you know, kind of steering them according to what the energies are going to help them most with. You know, some months it's going to be more of a self-care focus. Other months it's going to be what is your most authentic action that you need to get out there and do. So it's kind of working with those energies. And in addition to the guided meditations, I provide a weekly, you know, sort of overview of what's going on and what it means. And then we have just daily posts and reminders, you know, here's what the moon is going into today. And here's how you can, you know, just a quick sentence of what you can, how you can stay grounded with that. So that's the program, and it is available through my website, astrologyheals.com. You can read about it there. And yeah, what other questions did you have?
Well, go ahead and give everybody, so it's astrologyheals.com. Is there anything else that you've been up to lately? Give us some insight on what's going on with you, where people can buy your books, you know,
Great. Yep.
for reading, all the other stuff.
Yeah, so astrologyheals.com is the hub, the one-stop shop, I guess.
Stop shopping.
Yeah. You can learn about my reading options. You know, again, just like you, when I do sessions with people, we focus in on, you know, I don't want to overload people with information. So we focus on what is happening and how can your chart support you to make the most of that, you know, to understand it, to work with it positively and get where you're trying to go. So it's very results oriented, and you can learn more about my readings and sessions on my website, astrologyheals.com. You can also I have a free gift there. If you sign up, you can get a set of videos that walk you through creating a soul-based action plan. So that's actually a really good place to start. Create your own soul-based action plan that will, you know, give you a plan to work with the moon cycles for yourself. And then if you want to work with me, you know, you can follow up with those options. So I think that's me and how to find me and how to work with me.
good. Well, I hate, when if I go too long and then I have to cut the person off. So I
Yeah.
wanted you to get all that in. But I also, if I'm not mistaken, do you offer people who are curious about manifesting with moon cycles, is there a free meditation? And then if they want to buy into the program, is that still available?
Yeah, actually, that
Okay.
the four keys video series that all you have to do to get that is go to my website and enter your email address, and you get that. You get the soul-based action plan template worksheet to fill out. That's actually straight from my book.
Mhm.
You also get a series of videos that walk you through filling it out, and you get a sample meditation. So you really get a feel for what is involved if you sign up for the monthly program. And
Okay, great.
and the
That's
books are there also. You can read about the books, and they're available on Amazon, or you can click through from my website.
okay, cool. All right, so we got about 4 minutes left. So any quick insights on the fact that the next Saturn Aquarius, I get Uranus Aquarius, Saturn and Uranus square is coming up in about a month, and it's the energy is prevalent this whole year.
Right, the second of three.
Mhm.
So I just find it so fascinating. Every time I look at that square and I feel into it, it feels so potent. It's like you've got the planet of change, which is Uranus, in the sign of Taurus, which is about our everyday, our routine, our normal. So it's changed to normal, which we definitely, have been experiencing. But it's also in this square to Saturn, which is also about structure and routine and very earthy. And Saturn being in Aquarius, the sign that Uranus rules. So we have just a lot of this, sort of the energy of change combined with the status quo. And so it's changes to the status quo, but it's also laying the foundations of the future and having a vision and really having an opportunity to lay new foundations for change. And so we're seeing that in the collective. We're seeing certainly changes to the status quo, and things that used to work in a certain way are changing. But we're also seeing activists and visionaries and progressive values having a new path forward that they haven't had before. So I wish we had more time. There's tons more we could dive into, but
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll have you back and we can talk about it in the context also of healing, because that's your focus and your concentration. And I think because change scares people so much, and even if we're not conscious of that, right? A lot of us have karma around resisting change. I'm a Taurus Sun, so I know I do.
Yes.
Uranus, it's forced upon us. And like you were saying before, something happens to you, it's not necessarily always to be evaluated immediately. It can be evaluated over a longer term, because it's really how you perceive and how you handle and how you go forward, based on what just happened,
Exactly.
So our perspective is so important, right? And when now we were talking about Jupiter, so it's like, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And if you use your glass half empty, maybe you want to join the other crowd, or maybe something that for a glass half full person sets them back, and then they have to be reminded that they're a glass half full person,
Right. And that we always have that choice.
Exactly. Life is always about choice. All right. Well, I'm going to wind up now. I'm going to thank you. It was fun reconnecting with you. We definitely got to do this again. So I'm going to reach out to you. We'll schedule another date, and it won't be, it'll be a few months from now or something. So we have time to plan it. And thank you. Thank you so much, Marina. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. And thanks to everyone else for joining us today. I hope you've all found the information presented here helpful as you continue your karmic evolution in this lifetime. Please be sure to join me next week on May 20th for another episode of Karmic Evolutions, Astrologically Speaking. Until then, may your journey be filled with karmic healing and the joy of greater consciousness. Namaste.
Long ago, before this day's confusion did begin, throughout the stars did we go wandering. Distance was no barrier, and time it had no hold. Free to come and free to go. Free to come and free to go. Open